Hi, it's Charlie, and welcome to my channel, Charlie Reads and Reviews. It's the 3rd of March, and so I just wanted to do a quick video on the books that I read in February. Just a quick summary of what those books were and my ratings for them, my halos, and then the books that I'm planning on reading in March. I've already finished with it. All right, so I started off the month with Forest of a Thousand Lanterns by Julie C. Dow. This is her debut book. I think it came out 2015. I'm not sure now, but I only came across it this year. So, it came out last year. 2017. Sorry. So I came across it this year in Jan. One of these book bloggers that I follow, Vicky Who Reads, she was going on about Julie C. Dow, and so I bought both books that are available. So it comes in. This is book 1 and book 2, which is on my to be read for March, but I'll get into book 2 later. So in essence, this is a reimagining of the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but from the perspective of the evil queen. So here it's reimagined from an East Asian perspective, and it's a young girl and how she ends up becoming empress and kind of goes down the path of becoming a dark evil witch. And just a really, really phenomenally easy and gripping book to read. And I'm not really one who tends to side on the villain side, but she made me actually care about this villain. And, even though I know how it's going to end, you're constantly hoping that she doesn't go evil. She doesn't turn into what she's actually going to become. And it really humanized her in a way that I've never really seen. But to be fair, I haven't really read a lot of different adaptations of the Snow White story. I've watched the movies that have been different adaptations of it. So take what you will of it. This one gets 5 halos from me because it was really easy to read. I finished it in like 3 days, and this is with me reading it in the mornings or after work in the evenings. And it's not a short read. It's like, I didn't read the back of book 2, but I already had book 2, so I was like, I'm not going to bother reading. But it's about 363 pages, so it's not a short read, and I finished it really quickly. Then, I don't have this book because I've lent it to someone else, but I did read the physical version of this book. I came across a trailer for The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon, and I loved that trailer. So it's a young adult romance film adaptation of the book. And when I found it was a book, I went on this rabbit hole trying to figure out who Nicola Yoon is. And when I found out that she is also the author of this book, Everything, I bought this, as well as The Sun Is Also a Star. This was her debut book, Everything. I'll talk about this one because I also read it last month. But I decided to start with The Sun Is Also a Star, which is probably a mistake in hindsight. But such a phenomenal book. So in essence, what the story is about, it's about young love. It's 2 immigrant kids. One is a Korean American, the other one a Jamaican American. Korean American is a documented immigrant. The Jamaican American is an undocumented immigrant, and they meet and fall in. Well, the aim of the thing is that the Korean American is trying to convince. So what's his name? Daniel. I guess love at first sight. He's a poet, aspiring. Well, not really aspiring. He's aspiring to be a doctor because that's what his parents want him to be. But he, in his heart, is a poet, and he believes in love and all those type of things. And he meets Natasha, his Jamaican American, who is a skeptic, all about facts and science, doesn't believe in falling in love, and he convinces her that he can get her to fall in love in a week. And she says, "You've got a day." So he thinks she's just, being a real skeptic, and this book is about that day. But the truth is, this is her last 24 hours in the U. Actually, less than 24 hours in the U.S. She's about to be deported by the government, and so it touches on race relations, interracial relationships, being a migrant, being kids of migrant families. First generation, second generation Americans. It touches on cultural differences, on expectations from parents, family dynamics, love in all the different forms that it comes in. It was just a really, really brilliant book. However, I give it 4.5 halos only because there's something I didn't really like at the end of the book. I think it's the second last chapter. For whatever reason, and I felt the same when I read Everything, Everything. It was just that second last chapter. I don't know. Nicola Yoon wants to put in a passing of time, and I get what she was attempting to do, but it really didn't add much value to the story or move the story enough for me. That honestly, if she had skipped that chapter, I'd have loved that book. It would have gone 5 halos, and it's getting 4.5 because that second last chapter was a supreme waste of my time to read. No offense, it just didn't add to the story, didn't move it for me. And the last chapter, I think the way she did it was perfect. But my opinion really. Then I finished How Asia Works. So that one I listened to. It's an audiobook. I bought it on Audible maybe 3-4 years ago when I was doing my MBA. My economics lecturer was going on and on about it, and at that point in time, I guess I wasn't really interested in reading any extra stuff, so I didn't pay much attention. But it was always in the back of my head because I lived in South Korea, so a lot of those things kind of intrigued me. In essence, what the book is about is just how it goes through the journey of how the East Asians, so when I say East, I mean Far East as well as Southeast Asia, how they went from colonization through to where they are. Well, not today, because I think that book came out so he told me about it during the MBA, so maybe it came out 2013, I'm not sure. But, obviously lots have changed since then, but really interesting to see how those countries got to where they are. What fascinated me more than anything in this book is that, I don't know if you knew this, but there was land redistribution that happened in China, in Japan, in South Korea, in Taiwan, in the Philippines, and I think Malaysia. There was a couple of other Asian countries. So in essence, it touches on most of the East Asian countries, the ones that I've mentioned, plus Indonesia, and Vietnam, and Thailand. Don't really go into Laos or Cambodia or Nepal. I'm trying to think what else. No, I guess Nepal's more South Asia. But it just fascinates me for, being South African, and we have that issue of land redistribution, and people always like to bring up, oh, look at Zimbabwe, it's such a bad idea. But what was really brilliant about this book is that he shows how it was done in all of these different countries, what went right, what went wrong, what were the different conditions that allowed it to go right or wrong. And really, really great book to listen to because it's quite long. I can't remember how many hours it was, but it was quite a long listen. But it was also one of those where I feel I need to go buy the physical book, and it's one of those things that I need to interrogate because it really makes you think about some of the solutions that potentially we could think of for Africa. So I'm an African, so those things interest me. A lot of it obviously pertains to public policy, but also just thinking from a private sector perspective. Whenever you start a business, what are some of the things that you need to be aware of? Because he goes into quite a bit. So it's written by Joe Studwell, and he goes into a lot of detail about just what the leaders did, how they crowded in private sector, how they grew the private sector in different countries, and what went wrong, what went right, etc. So just really interesting if you're into development and economics and that type of thing, and also just out of interest of understanding why land redistribution worked in Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea so well, and didn't work so well in the Philippines. And I guess China didn't work as well as it should. All right. So then I got into Everything by Nicola Yoon. This has also been turned into a film. In fact, I saw the trailer for the film. I haven't watched this film, but I definitely want to watch it after reading this. Definitely going to watch The Star of It. I think it only comes out in June, I think. Anyway, so Nicola Yoon is a Jamaican American. So when I first saw her name, I was like, is she Korean? So I lived in Korea, so I can pick up surnames now. I was like, she's Korean. I found it so fascinating that this Korean woman would always have Black females as her protagonists. I know that The Star's Also Son has a Korean man in it, but still, I was like, that's so fascinating. Then I found her picture. I was like, no, she's Black. So I was like, oh, I didn't realize Jamaicans have the surname Yoon. Oh, wow, mind blown. Then I found out her husband's Korean American. His name is David Lehman. That's when she took his surname. Just an interesting thought that popped into my head when I found that out. So in Korea, women do not take on their husband's surnames, they keep their father's surname. So it's still patriarchal in its thought. So don't go, yay, for women, it's still very patriarchal. But I just wondered, it just went through my mind that I wonder what went through that decision making when you marry into a culture that does not recognize that you need to take my surname to keep your father's surname, but in your culture you take your husband's surname. Like what dynamics played out there? Does it have an impact in future going on? They've got a young daughter, etc. You know, I don't know. It was just something interesting. Nothing that I really need anyone to answer. But anyway, so everything is about a young girl. She's interracial, Japanese, African American, and she suffers from a very rare disease called SCID, and it's SCID. See if I can find it. Oh yeah, severe combined immunodeficiency, so or bubble baby disease. So in essence, if she goes out into the world, anything that comes into contact with her could potentially kill her. So she lives in a home that is completely protected, like a cocoon. She has access to the internet. She studies. She's just turned 18, beginning of this book, and she interacts with her mom, who's her best friend, and the nurse who checks up on her. Her mom's a doctor, so that's been very helpful for her in terms of managing this disease. And then one day, a boy moves in next door. Ollie, good-looking white boy, moves in, and chaos ensues. I loved the way she wrote this book, which is also in the Stars also. So I loved how some of the chapters can be really short, and she did from the two points of views. She went from the point of view of Daniel and the point of view of Natasha, and it's just so well researched and just thought through in terms of building characters, because at no point did you really felt that it was the point of view of Daniel. It was very different to the point of view of Natasha. There was no conflating of the views, so brilliantly written. And very similar here, she's got just interesting ways of doing the chapters. Some of them are very short, some of them are like it looks like a diary entry. Some of them are illustrations. So when I read reviews about this, they said, oh, her husband, as I found out, her husband's David Unit, he had illustrated that. Before I had gotten the book, I said, illustrate, I mean the cover of the book. So anyway, you get in, you realize that, like, they have like an email. And you know when they say, I know I said it in the other one that about Jason Reynolds, that he can take prose and make it say, say as much as in such a space of time as a picture could, right? But here is the definition of when a picture says a whole lot more than words would. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Again, would have been 5 halos, but the second last chapter of this book, again, just felt very rushed and again, unnecessary to move the story along, because I honestly could have lived without it. And I just want to admit, a tiny spoiler here. Part of the reason why this chapter didn't move me that much is because I didn't feel a connection to the mother, to her mom, because as much as her mom featured a little bit here and there, and you could see the bond that they have for each other is there, it just didn't move me enough or connect me enough to her for me to warrant the need for that chapter, because I got why she put that chapter there, or which was attempting again, but it really didn't add any value to that story. Anyways, 4.5 halos, because it was brilliant, except for that second last chapter. Then, I listened to Things Fall Apart. Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. Listened to that in 2016. Listened to it again now because I'm part of a book club, and it was the book for February. So Things Fall Apart is written by Chinua Achebe. I think it was published in 1943. So that's Little Prince. But it came out a long time ago, I think in the 70s. And it's basically based at a time where just before colonization happens in modern day Nigeria, and it's around the Igbo people. So I think they're in the south of modern day Nigeria. And it's about these 9 kingdoms, and just really interesting way for you to learn about the Nigerian culture. It was really interesting for me because some of the things that they did, very similar to some stuff that my parents do, some Uganda and stuff that they do, that like when they don't shout each other's name at night in case the evil spirits hear their names. And so, I mean, it manifests differently amongst the Nigerians, but it was just interesting to see some of these similarities. I was very envious from the perspective of learning a lot about Nigeria or Igbo culture and wondering, I would love to learn about my culture. But I do have a book somewhere here, Chintu, which I don't know where I put it. It's somewhere over here that hopefully will help me with that. Actually, it's over there. It will hopefully help me along those lines. But this book is a classic for a reason. A book I'll definitely add to my repertoire of books that I read more than once. I've now listened to it twice. I'm definitely going to buy the physical one. It definitely gets 5 halos. So it's about the main character, Okonkwo, is this warrior who has a chip on his shoulder from his dad because his dad was, in his mind, a lazy man who's unsuccessful in life, and he wanted to be the exact opposite. And it just results in him going above and beyond what he needed to, and then it backfiring on him eventually. It was fascinating from the perspective of understanding different cultures. It was fascinating to understand the laws and legal systems that existed pre-colonization and how it worked. It wasn't perfect, but just understanding how it worked. And the concept of people thinking, we were saved by the white man when they landed here and brought rules of war to us when we already had those things in place. Which obviously makes sense. Human beings make laws. So it doesn't matter where you are and how advanced you are, you're still going to have religion, you're going to have laws, you're going to have classism. So it touches on all of that. And patriarchy. One of the things that we discussed in the book club was that with the modern or westernization of Africa, we've gotten freedom as women from patriarchy to an extent. But I didn't say this at the book club, but now I think about it, I realize, because patriarchy is something that existed in the Western world, especially at the time of colonization. So it didn't bring about more freedom to women or African women. It was just coincidence or timing. It was just unnatural. And you see it also in the book where Okonkwo has a daughter who, he has lots of kids. He's not a very nice husband. One of the ladies he does seem to love. So he has one daughter with her. All the other kids are she's either miscarried or she's had twins. There's a thing where they used to kill twins in that ethnic group. Anyways, so we'll not kill them, they just leave them to fend for themselves in the forest. So, they're gonna die. So he has this daughter, and she's very similar to him in terms of his ambitions and intellect. And he constantly compares his oldest son to this daughter and wishing that his daughter was his son, and his son, keeps referring to his son as being a woman. But he starts to give her little by little power. So already in and of itself, it's showing how things would slowly, that's how things would change. Like had we not been colonized, had we not been interfered with, then I do think that a little bit more freedom for women would have started to happen. We put some of them in power, they're going to empower the women. It's just, I think, a natural evolution of things. But anyway, so 5-star, really brilliant. If you've ever read it, I'm sure, just tell me about it. But definitely a book that I want to read and read and read again. All right, and then the last book that I finished. So I only read 6 books. I was hoping to finish more, but I didn't get there. It was Sprint. So I got the physical copy of this book, but I actually listened to this book to finish it. So Sprint is written by Jake Knapp and with the help of John Zeratsky and Braden Cowards. So these guys are from Google Ventures, and they're basically just telling you how you can solve the problems and test new ideas in 5 days. This is a book that I started reading again. So I started reading last year because so I got retrenched last year, and we were trying to think of a business idea, and we wanted to test out to build something in 5 days, in essence. And so I bought this book because the one guy had mentioned this book would be brilliant. And when I was reading it, I was like, this feels like something I've done before. I used to be head up innovation at a place, and we had a consultant company come in, and they made us do, it wasn't quite 5 days, they cut it to 4, but a lot, no, it was even 3 days. We did it in 3, not 4. And a lot of what was in here was basically what those guys did. It was a little frustrating for me. It was like, they charge a lot of money. But for me, I think it's a great thing if you are someone who's starting a business, if you're someone who has a business and has different products or services, if you want to try out something that isn't working out, you want to test and see what went wrong. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. This is a book I'm glad I have a physical copy of, because they have like checklists that you can use in terms of what you do in each day. So they say Monday, these are the things you're supposed to do, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. So you can go into the detail in the rest of the book, and at the back you've got checklists of what you need to buy. It tells you what stationery you need to have, how to interview the customers, what type of customers, what's the ideal number. The ideal number, for those who ever want to know, it's 6. Beyond that, you get diminishing returns. So just really, really useful book. And even for me, because, you know, got an investment club, and so we want to invest in businesses, and we also want to help them grow. So I think this will be quite helpful. So that's what I read, the 6 books that I read in Feb. That took me to 12 books by the end of Feb, and makes me 2 books ahead of where I'm meant to be, to get to 60 by December. So much better than where I was last year this time. Right, so my to be read for March is a little bit more than 6. So Radical Candor. I actually started this 2 weeks ago, but I've been struggling to get in. I don't know what it is about nonfiction books and physical nonfiction books. This is why I listen to most of my nonfiction books, is because I'm stuck in traffic quite a bit, and so I'm like, I could listen to a podcast, music, or a book. So it's a way for me to kind of force myself to get through a book. Anyway, so Radical Candor is by Kim Scott, who used to work at Google, at Apple. She had her own business. She's a Silicon Valley type person. And she even worked for a diamond cutting company as well at some point. Anyway, so she started this company called Radical Candor, and she's coached a couple of CEOs in Silicon Valley. In essence, what this book is about is how you can have conversations with your staff. So if you're in a position of leadership as a boss, as she likes to call them, how you can be clear about what you want from your staff, how you can provide honest, candid but caring feedback that doesn't break them, but hopefully helps them on the right path, whether that's out of that role or in that role and thriving. So where I'm currently working, it's like mandated reading, so I'm trying to finish it so that we can have more of these type of candid conversations with people. And also, as much as it speaks from the perspective that you're a boss to people below you, it's meant to be that you can have those conversations with family, with your peers, with your superiors, etc. This book, Invest and Invest. I've been trying to finish this book. I'm on page 46. Again, struggling with it, and not because it's not a good read, it really is. It's a book that has really helped me already from our investment club, which is the reason I got it. So we've started an angel investment fund, and that's what this book is about. It's about, this is by Peter Cowley, who's the head of the UK Angel Investment Network. I'm sure it's got a different name, and he's an angel investor. He started plenty of startups. And so in this book, he basically gives you tips as an investor, but as a business owner, he also encourages you to read it so you know exactly what investors are looking for. But also, if you have an investor who doesn't follow this, you know that that investor is not invested in your business. So hoping to finish it this month, because it just needs to go. East Might. I really, really want to read this, because I started it in December as part of my 50 to finish, but I got a little tired, so I chose to finish The Little Prince instead of this. And then I just got caught up in all my other books, so it's still here. It's a book I really want to read, because I'm trying to finish my fantasy novel. So it's by Tochi Onyebuchi. He's a Nigerian British guy. So it doesn't count as my African book, but I've got another one right there. So it is a POC book. It was an African diaspora book. So yay for me, it's fantasy. I'm reading it so that it can inspire me or help me frame my tone for my book. In essence, what it is, it's like you get these sin eaters. So if you think about modern day, it's kids who've been abandoned, orphaned, come from poverty, and they come into this big city to make a life for themselves. And they get trained up to eat the sins of the wealthy. So wealthy people can pay, if you do really bad crime, you just pay a mage, and the mage basically pulls out the sin out of you, and it turns into this shadow beast. And then a sin eater has to come and kill the shadow beast and then consume it. And then it turns into a tattoo. So touching on how tattoos are seen as taboo and ugly and a sense of othering yourself from others. And it is based in, they don't really say it's Nigeria, but from the names and stuff, you know what it is. So I'm really, really excited to finish this book. They have a sequel, Crown of Thunder, which is already out. So once I finish this, I'll definitely read that. Right. Then this is my African author living in Africa book for the month. This is Misbehave. Oh yeah. Okay, I'll get to that. Misbehave by Malebu Sepodi. This is my book club suggestion. So I don't really know that much about it. I have started and I was actually getting into a book last week, and I got to page 20. So she's the forward, or she called it, first story, was a little for me, but the actual book, first at least the first couple of pages of chapter 1, wow, I was really caught in. So I'm really excited to finish this. It's like a very short read. It's only 180 pages. Very pricey, 180 pages, but supporting Black authors. Here we go. So she calls herself an activist and a writer with a special interest in gender development and science. And so what I think this book is, I think it's a memoir. In my review at the end of the month, I'll tell you what it is when I finish it. I think it's a memoir about her life and battling gender dynamics and patriarchy. And I assume race will get into this at some point. She goes science and economics in Africa. So sounds like it'll be very, very interesting. So the other challenge that I've given myself was I need to read an Asian author a month and an African author from the African continent. So Judy C. Dow's the sequel to Forest of a Thousand Lanterns, Kingdom of the Blazing Phoenix. Really, really, really looking forward to this. Started it up, got to page 8. So I started up and I was going to devour this, but I was trying to finish what I could, which didn't work out. But so I'm definitely going to finish this month. Really looking forward to it. So I didn't say this in my review of Forest of a Thousand Lanterns. What I loved about that book was that it was such a great representation of Eastern cultures without being blatant about it, not being too obvious, and to the point where if you're not Asian and you've never lived in Asia, or you don't really know much about Asia, you wouldn't pick it up. You just think it's a book on Chinese folklore based from a Chinese perspective, because the Chinese theme is quite through it. Interesting enough, she is a Vietnamese American, so Chinese. So firstly, before I get into that, I love that she has put, sorry, I can't see, so she puts in the main characters of the book, and she tells you how to pronounce them. So it helps me. So the continent is called Fanglu, and it's spelled F-E-N-G, so I would have said Fenglu, but it's actually Fanglu. And this is, in essence, a book about Snow White now. So Snow White, or Jade in this book, is basically she wants to live a simple life, but she's realizing that she needs to save her continent, her country, and has to step up and fight the evil empress. So I'm really excited to see what happens with this. But why I was talking about how she does it. So in the one place, it's called Kamatsu. It's the land, I think it's Kamatsu, the land of 1,000 seas or something along those lines. Yeah, Kamatsu. And then the people who come from Kamatsu are Akira, Shiro, Hideki, Ken. Now, if you know Asian culture, you'll pick up that these are Japanese names. And the other names in the main place, like the mainland, Shifang, Guma, Ning, Emperor Jun, Empress Li Hua, those are very Chinese sounding names. Trying to think. Throughout the book, they do go into different things, but what I found so fascinating about this is like she melded in other ethnic groups, other Asian ethnic groups here, without being so blatant about Kamatsu and the raging seas or the 1,000 seas. You know, Japan's an island. And the names are very Japanese. And then you go to the mainland and China. The Chinese names, I just loved that. I loved how she combined them all together. And then you've got, sorry, at the back. So a Fang Lu is basically a combination of different kingdoms. There's the Dragon King, which is the Lord of the Forest, and that's where the mainland is. Then the Lord of the Sea, and Kamatsu, sorry, it's the Kingdom of the Boundless Sea, Kamatsu. Then there's the Lord of the Desert, and the desert is the Kingdom of Shifting Sands, or Surjalana. Now, I don't know what that is, but it kind of sounds like Indian, Surjalana. And then Dagovad is the Kingdom of the Four Winds. We haven't really touched on that yet in Forest. I'm hoping it gets touched on a little bit more in Blating for next, so I can guess where, what ethnic group is represented by that. And then Kingdom of the Sacred Grasslands. Don't know anything about that yet. But brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I'm so excited about this. It's also really great for me from my book. It's helped me think about how do I combine all of these different African ethnic groups that I'm trying to combine in my book. Because, you know, I was so worried because I was touching on the Baganda, on Kiswahili, on Xhosa. I also wanted to bring in some Venda, and the Wolof from Senegal and Gambia. And I didn't know how I was going to do that. This book really gave me, or I thought that maybe I needed to focus on one and not conflate everything, but she did it in such a way that it didn't feel conflated. It didn't feel like it was too much info. Now, speaking about that, there's this book, massive book. I was not meant to buy this book yet. Black Leopard, Red Wolf. I went into bargain books to buy Misbehave. And this was up there, and I bought it. Okay, it wasn't that pricey. It was 290 rands. I have to ask so many questions because this book is 225 rands and it's like 180 pages. This book is 290 and it's 600 and something pages. Anyways, I'll never understand. It's not even that I think that the author is the one who's priced it, because apparently on Take-A-Lot or Kalahari or Loot, it's like less than 200 rands for this book. So you know that she's got her price, and it's the people who are selling you put their markup. I don't know. Anyways, so this book made me. I started it. Wasn't supposed to. Got to page 4, but very similarly, I'll just say, I love books that have maps. So my book's also going to have a map. And my books, Children of Blood and Bones, books have beautiful maps. That's the only thing that was missing from Julie C. Dow's books. And then very similar to how Julie C. Dow does, where you basically say, who are all the people? What I love about this is that when you're going through and you forget who this person is, you can just come easily to the front and be like, oh yeah, that's that person. Oh yeah, that's that kingdom. Oh yeah, that's that thing. There's a lot of people here. That's why this book's like 600 whatever, and that's why he said it's like the Game of Thrones of Africa. This book, however, has made me panic. So in my book, I was going to use the main mythical creature is going to be an impendu, and one of the side ones was going to be a yambo. So initially I was going to have different creatures from different parts of the world kind of coming together. So I had mythological creatures from South America, from Brazil, from Europe, from Asia, and then I think I was going to have 3 or 4 from the African continent. In this book, I'm looking through it and I see Yambo. I'm like, oh, this guy knows his Yambos. Okay. And he says, bush fairies and guardians of children. Cool, cool. I wasn't going to use it from a guardian of children perspective, but I've imagined them as healers, and they are fairies, right? But as healers is my interpretation of it. And then I'm reading through, and I come across Impendulu, but he's spelled it differently. He says Ipundulu. When I came across it in my research, it was Impundulu. Sorry, Impendulu. Impundulu. Anyways, it was a name. And it's a vampire lightning bird, so it's exactly the same. And I just started to panic, and I was like, oh, God, how am I going to write my book if he's already done this? And I realized, you know what? One of the reasons I even moved in this direction is because I loved how J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter. And I was kept thinking, you know, I had a conversation with my former boss, and he was like, she has such a creative mind. And I was thinking about that, like how does her mind get to all these places where she creates all these creatures and stuff? And then when you do your research, you realize a lot of these creatures already existed. She's just put them together in ways that are different, that have never been done, so especially not from a children's reading perspective. And so I was like, okay, let him go and write the stuff. And I mean, he's made a big splash in the world. He's written another book. Here's the name of the other book. Something of 7 sons, 7 killings. A brief history of 7 killings. And he's a Man Booker Award winner for it. That book, I almost got it, but it was also about the same price. And I was like, let me see. I'll see how it goes through this one before I buy that one. I don't know if it's fiction or reimagining of history, because he mentions like there was an attempted assassination of Bob Marley, and he survives, and it was never investigated, and that's what the story is about, at least the little bit that I read about it. So I was like, okay, sounds interesting. Anyway, so this book is about, so there's a boy that assassins have been hired to go kill. We don't know yet what this boy has or why he needs to be killed. And then at the beginning of the book, he's dead. And basically they're trying to figure out who killed him, why he was killed, and I guess go through the story. And I think it's going to be really, really good. I think just by looking at the map, I love how he's combined so many different ethnic groups from the continent, which is what I want to do, but not as many as he has. Mine will be a lot simpler than this. But just looking at the map at the different places, you kind of get an idea. Like there's a place called Juba, which for me tells me that's Sudan or South Sudan. There's a place called Kongor. It's obviously Congo. There's Wakadishu. That could either be Mogadishu in Somalia, or I don't know how to pronounce it's Senegal's. Is it Senegal's or Burkina Faso's capital? Ouagadougou, I think it was Ouagadougou. So it could be any one of those. There's Luala, that could be Luanda in Angola. And even when you look at the different names and of the creatures, and so Yambos come from Senegal, Sangoma is South African. Then they have a kid whose name is Ayodele, that's Nigerian. Let me just see if I can find any other ethnic groups. Kafuta could be Ugandan. Yeah, so I can't wait to read this book. So I'm not going to read it yet because it's just. Oh, and then another 2 books. So one I'm listening to, which is Creative Quest by Questlove. I don't know what his first name is. Amir, I think. Amir Questlove Thompson, I think is his name. Or Ahmed. Sorry, I'll write it. I actually finished that today. I was listening to that. So he is the drummer from The Roots, but he's also on Saturday Night Live, the Jimmy Fallon Show. He's written several books. I didn't realize he's owned restaurants. He's got TV shows. He's done so many amazing things. So basically, what he's written this book about is how to be creative and how to channel your creativity. And so I read the book by the guy who came up with Pixar. I think it's called Think Creative. Can't remember what it's called. But that was a book that they said, if you're a creative, definitely you need to read. I listened to it. Maybe not the best because the narrator wasn't the greatest for me. And Questlove starts his book. So he narrates it, which makes it so interesting. He's got music in the background. It's really cool. And he starts it off by saying that he wanted to write this book because he's read plenty of books about creativity and thinks that they're missing something. So I agree. What a lot of these other books talk about is, this is what you do, this is how you be creative, or they talk about what they did to be creative or to create the things that they created. What he does is he goes into, this is how you start the creative process, this is how you get over writer's block, this is how you get over failure, this is how you get over disappointment, this is how you take turmoil and trauma in your life and channel into creativity. This is how sometimes you just sit back and be bored and you use that to channel creativity. And I love that because it was so practical, because a lot of the other books are not practical. Like, it sounds really great, like, yeah, I must do this, I must have a set time for me to write or read or whatever, create music, whatever I need to do. But he also talks about the importance of collaboration, but then also some of the downfalls of collaboration. What happens when one of you gets the recognition the other one doesn't, or one of you is seen to be, so it's exactly the same thing. I'm trying to remember what the other scenario was from that we collaborate, or where one of you actually does contribute more and the other one doesn't, but you both get equal representation, equal benefits from it. Or what if you do collaborate and it's really crap, whatever it is that you've created, and just really practical, really, really useful. I came across this book because of a book vlogger that I follow left unread, and she mentioned it. She mentioned that it's a book that she has to reread, and I agree with her. I definitely want to get the physical book. I went with the audio because she mentioned it, I found it and went with it, and I wasn't sure I could find it easily here in South Africa. But I'll look to buy the physical book. Definitely want to read that. And then the other one that I'm reading on my Kindle is sorry, just wait a second to go and see. It's new. Just checking my Goodreads. My phone is not there. So, the little book of skincare, Korean beauty. I think it's meant to say Korean beauty secrets by Charlotte Cho. So Charlotte Cho is a Korean American who started a company called So Glam that has done phenomenally well. So she lived in South Korea for a while, I think 6 years. We definitely crossed paths. No, I think it even longer than that. I'm sure that when I was living there, she was living there, but maybe because she's Korean American, she really got into the whole Korean 10-step beauty regime thing. And then she started to become an esthetician, and then she started Sofa Glam in the US, basically bringing Korean beauty products, curating them, and bringing them to Americans. And I think she's expanding into Canada and a bit of Europe as well. Fortunately, she does not deliver here. So I'm reading it because I started taking care of my skin, not for me. I did a Korean mask on my face. It was feeling, looking so good. I think you probably won't know this because you didn't know. Sorry. She just when I'm on a video or a phone call, he wants attention. That's misty. Anyways, which was going to sleep through this. It took too long in this video. So anyway, so this book she wrote it as a means of helping women in America know how to take care of their skin. So I'm reading it from the perspective I want to know how to take care of my skin. And then I also want to see about building a business of bringing affordable, beautiful beauty haircuts to South Africans, affordable, convenient. And then over time, I want to learn how to make it for our skin and for our environment, etc. Hopefully manufacture them here. So that's long-term big goals, and that's why I'm reading that book. So I'm 40% in. And it's not that the book isn't interesting. I just think I probably would have been, so it's on my Kindle. I think it might have been better for me to get a physical version of it, but I don't think I could get that. So I have to stick with what I am. Hoping to finish it this week. Yeah, so those are my to-be reads for March. Quite a bit. I'll go through all of them. 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. There'll be 8 books, and that will take me to 20 out of 60. Right. So let me know what you are planning to read in March. Let me know if you're any challenges, if you've read any of the books that I have read or am planning to read. Yeah. Cheers.